Digital Music Trends coverage of South by Southwest 2013. It's the first day of music, and it's a real pleasure to have on the show Darryl Ballantyne, the CEO of the company LyricFind. So, hi Darryl, how's it going today?
It's going great. I just got in last night, so I'm still actually well rested and ready to take in the chaos of South by.
Yeah, of course. And so, LyricFind, a company that started in 2004, so it's a company that has been around more than most in the digital music space. Just a general overview of how's the journey been in the last 8 years, I guess.
Yeah, it's been interesting. There's been a lot of ups and downs. Being around for eight and a half or so years now, we've seen a lot of things come and go, and it took us about 3 years to get all the licensing in place. So that was kind of a long, tough stretch. But over the last few years, as we've expanded worldwide, we're in 30 countries now, and as lyrics have become an integral part of a digital music experience, that things have gone quite well, and we've had a lot of growth over the last few years, and it's much smoother now than it was 7 years ago.
Yeah, so. Sure. Also in terms of licensing, because of course the publishers had really to catch up pretty quick to what's happening on the digital front, but when you guys started, they probably weren't caught up at all. So how hard was it to start?
It was tough. We actually tried before once to get licensing in 2000, and weren't able to get the deals done. But the benefit of that attempt was that it put the thought in the publisher's head of there is potentially a market here, and there is something that can be done. So they started to clean up writer agreements to allow for lyrics rights and add in other abilities to actually do a catalog-wide license of lyrics. Whereas before we came along, everybody just wanted a one-off for a lyric for a book or a magazine or maybe an album's worth or something like that. So there was definitely, even after we came back to it in 2004, there was a big education process with the publishers. We went through a lot of different people at each publisher to say, who was it that was even responsible for it? Was it the print rights person? Was it the internet person? Was it the business affairs person? And everybody was kind of confused as to whose responsibility it was to handle this license, because it had never been done before. But the publishers were pretty good about it. They recognized that there was a market for it, and were willing to give us a license on reasonable terms, and just let us try. And now it's turned out to be a wise decision for them. Sure.
Of course. And so looking at the way that the company has evolved, of course, the B2B side is I would say the strongest of you license the lyrics to a bunch of different services, and so of course that also ties into the licensing discussion by talking about how different services might use the lyrics, and so how difficult is it to maybe add different features or talk to the publishers about different types of uses for the lyrics that maybe you hadn't initially envisaged in the original agreements?
It's a lot easier now than it used to be. The publishers have gotten to a point of comfort with us where they trust us to do good deals and to grow the overall business, and are getting a little less caught up on individual unit prices and models. So we've had a few unique models that have come across from potential clients that we've been able to go back to the publishers and say, this is what the client wants to do, this is why we think it makes sense, and will you approve it? And virtually every time they've said yes with very little tweaks, because they actually get that it's about growing the business. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were all still figuring things out and trying to determine what the right models are. But now we license people on per display models, on revenue shares, on per subscriber, on per device, per app. We have a model called Lyrics for Free, where we give people the content for their website, but we take over the ad space to be able to monetize it and pay the publishers. We've even explored some larger scale deals that are flat rate, and they're open to all the different models, and they've been very accepting to all the new experimental things that we want to try.
Sure, and big companies versus small companies. So how has the last couple of years been in terms of licensing the lyrics to startups or companies that are just starting out? And how's your experience been on that front?
It's been good. We see a lot of new startups. Most of the music startups end up coming to us at some point to talk about what they're doing and how lyrics will fit into it. So we end up seeing some really cool startups. There's a company that we've licensed called Gig with 2 Gs that
heard of them, you said.
Yeah, they're doing. They've got a really cool app, and it's really sort of addictive and a great use of lyrics. Similar to another company that we've licensed called Hear Lyrics that is doing a lot of image-based lyrics posts and things like that. And that's sort of a new area that's come out over the last little while that has been very, very interesting and viral for users. And we also see other startups that are just doing the same thing as everybody else. And some of them stick around and some of them don't. But I love seeing all the different novel new ideas for uses of lyrics and ways that we can license them and just get them going, get them out there at minimal cost, so that they're legal and can just focus on growing the business.
Sure. And lyrics are so important, and also around the lyrics there's a whole host of metadata that is attached to the track that is maybe not necessarily something that you started with as a business, because you're probably thinking just about the lyrics, artists and track names and those basic things. But how is the metadata expanding within your own database, and is that becoming more helpful to interrelate things and recommend things within the system?
Yeah. It's definitely very important, because that's how everything ties together. The metadata is the glue of every digital music service and all the interoperability. So very early on, we partnered with All Music Guide, which is now Rovi, to build off of their metadata as a base. So we attached all of the lyrics and the licensing data to the Rovi database. And we've since expanded to support other metadata sets. We work with Gracenote. We work with Echo Nest. We work with Music Brains. We have there, and we're adding in a lot more different sets of data to expand the content that we have available. Sure. And especially as we go international and add in more languages, more foreign content, there's a lot of other data sets that we're going to be incorporating. So we've really built up now a database of worldwide content that is now available, and without that metadata underneath it and everything else associated with it would be a gigantic mess of trying to match with all of our clients. So especially with integration into the Echo Nest with their Rosetta Stone product, that makes integration with a lot of people that much easier, because everything can flow through there and match, and it allows us to support a lot more data sets.
Of course. And I was talking to Vicky actually from Seven Digital yesterday about the same issue of international expansion for a company like yours, and especially when it comes to lyrics. I mean, it's even more complicated than when it comes to just pure music. How do you deal with working with publishers around the world? Do you have people on the ground, or how do you work on that front?
Vicky and I think we have a support group for international expansion that we go to, and it's publishing worldwide is a bit of a mess. Our main targets there are working with societies in each country to do aggregate deals rather than working with every publisher individually. And the way that works varies from country to country. Some countries can do more blanket deals through the societies, most can't. And then it's convincing them to help us, A, get all the publishers involved, and then B, using the collectives there to process the payments so that we can send one check to a collection society and they'll add it into all their existing payments there rather than us having to pay each publisher directly. And the rights change in every country. In some cases, we have to deal with different licensing structures and different ways that the whole process happens. So it's sort of a custom solution for every country. And you really do have to go to every country the biggest challenge of international licensing is managing all the rights in each country, because even a song that is available here and is owned by a publisher here can be represented by a different publisher in each different country. So getting a license from the original publisher here does not necessarily give you a license in the rest of the world. You have to manage each country's rights individually. So that's why at this point we're supporting 30 countries. We'll be expanding to support more soon, but it's an extremely large mess, and from a technical perspective, it's very difficult to manage tens of millions of tracks with multiple publishers usually associated with each track in each country, and it becomes a very, very big data problem more than anything.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I worked in that space as well, and it's a case where you have a publisher that maybe they can license worldwide from a specific territory, but if you license it originally from a different territory, then they don't have that power, and then you have to go to another publisher. So I assume you have like a pretty strong backend database to deal with all of that, right? Yeah,
it's definitely very complex and getting more and more complex, but also quite robust at this point. And we see a lot of conflicts too. We'll see tracks that are claimed by multiple publishers, and we end up sometimes with tracks in our database that are 300% claimed, and they all seem to be correct claims. So then we have to go back and contact the publishers and say, okay, who wins? Who's the right one? And we let them figure it out amongst themselves, and then they'll tell us. But there's a lot of conflicts out there that need to be managed, and then we have to, at that point, then just escrow the royalties and hold them back until they decide who gets them.
Sure. And lyrics are becoming important from a variety of reasons, but also there's a lot of synchronization options for lyrics, and you guys have a synchronization service as well. And also lyric videos are becoming increasingly important. We've seen Adele, for example, that she used the lyric video for Skyfall, which was a prime example of how viral they can go. Especially looking at lyrics video, how do you think that they can be monetized? Because of course it's a different story than just accessing a lyric from a separate app. And so does that require a separate discussion on the licensing front, or what's your take on that?
We've had a lot of conversations with the publishers about it to try to figure out what the best way to monetize lyric videos are and how we can help power those with our synchronization data. And generally I think the model for those ends up being some sort of a revenue share on the advertising, as long as it's with a reliable partner that is going to monetize properly. But it's tricky because you end up not getting necessarily the same rates because you've suddenly got another rights holder in the picture with the label from the master recording. And that will take a big chunk of the ad revenue as well. So it takes some tweaking of the model, and there are a few different services that we think we might be able to have models figured out that the publishers are on board with to properly license and monetize them. So it's definitely a big priority for both us and the publishers to get the right model behind it. And there's going to be some experimentation, and we'll see what comes out. But it's definitely not going away, and it won't remain as unlicensed as it is now.
It is today. Yeah, it's just going to be juggling the priorities of the publishers with the master owners. So if the lyrics are used within the videos, maybe the publisher can get a bigger cut of the advertising on that video, rather than if it was just like a normal movie shot.
The publisher definitely ends up with a bigger piece, and essentially takes that visual piece of a typical music video, and then there's still the master recording, and then the traditional publishing right. So.
Sure. You got a mobile app as well. So how is that going? Are you pushing that at all, or is it just like a way to showcase your catalog? How do you work with that?
It's really just a way to showcase our catalog and the integration with Rovi. When we launched it years ago, when there were no other lyric apps on the iPhone, and we thought, okay, we can build this, and people can then see what's in our catalog, how the search works, how it ties in with all the Rovi data. And then it was really meant as a demo. So it's not really a priority for us, and we've licensed so many other mobile apps now that are much more focused on building that. It's a nice thing for us to have, just as a demo, and we ended up, I think we've had about 6 million downloads or 7 million downloads across Android and iPhone. So it was relatively popular and still gets a lot of traffic, but the priority for us is the B2B side of it.
Yeah, of course. And looking at the monetization front, of course, at the beginning, Lyric sites were mostly monetized via, display advertising. That must have evolved a lot in the last few years, and we're talking about of how many different models there are. Is there any particular monetization model that was more surprising for you in terms of the results than another one, other than just display?
For the Lyric sites, it's still mainly display ads, text ads. A lot of them are now that they're legal, they're able to sell a lot more premium advertising and go to real advertisers rather than just the networks and sort of lower tier ads.
Yeah, sure.
So you'll see sites like Metro Lyrics that have site takeovers and wrappers around the site, or Lyrics Mode will do that as well, and other sites that are doing that. And some of the sites that we license start to do more sponsorship based ad buys, and that display is still the predominant form.
It's just the targeting of the display that's changing.
They're able to do a lot more targeting. They're able to go to real advertisers and sell at premium CPMs, because now it's against vetted, licensed quality content rather than UGC disorganized stuff that's on there.
Yeah, sure. And looking at the next phase, I guess with LyricFind, it's a very gradual evolution process. It's not like because it's a very established service. You're not going to bring out this incredible new feature or something, because it's building blocks on top of building blocks. Is there anything in particular that you're working on that you'd like to see on the service?
The big things that we're working on now are expanding the sync catalog and expanding more internationally. So supporting more countries and adding in all of the licensed content in different languages. Those are really the biggest pushes for us. And then beyond that, it's just really getting into more services. We're doing a lot of mobile services now. We recently did a deal with Nokia for mixed radio, and we also did a deal with HTC that they demoed at their launch a couple weeks ago with the synchronized lyrics built into the native player, which makes a really cool implementation for them. They did a great job on that. So we're seeing a lot of things like that, and we're doing a lot of more global deals with the expanded rights.
Yeah, of course.
So it's really from a feature perspective, it's all about content and geography and sync.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes absolute sense. I mean, if you guys end up with the largest content lyrics database, then you can leave the actual features to the companies who license the lyrics to, and you still remain the focus point where people can come to get the lyrics from. So
yeah, and we're trying to build in as many other extra features that we can. Yeah. We've built in things like automatic search engine filtering and a profanity filter to get clean lyrics on demand.
Yeah.
We've built in various different listings, and we're building in things for sync, for monetization, for search, all those different areas to make the content as accessible as possible.
Of course, yeah.
And with the expansion into 30 countries, we recently added a feature into our APIs so that our clients don't necessarily have to differentiate country by country. They can pass the IP into us, and we'll determine the right place. So the integration for multi-territory is much easier.
Yeah.
And just trying to do things like that to make our clients' lives easier. But it's a lot of back-end stuff rather than anything that comes out in the front end.
Of course, of course. Well, that's great. Well, it was absolutely a pleasure having you on the show, and I'd suggest to go and check out LyricFind if you're a startup or you're looking for lyrics or you need anything in that area. Go and check out lyricfind.com. Thanks so much, Darryl, for your time.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.